Good evening, Raven Rose. I want to welcome you all to this week's Paranormal Audio Files. This is where we share a snippet of our recordings, videos, and pics from our investigations through the years that we have found fascinating. Tonight I will share you our visit to Edinburgh Manor. This is where Taylor Boggs and I conducted a necrophonic session with, I felt, was the spirit that led to a profound and, in my opinion, a mind-blowing experience. It has been edited down for time. This was to shorten any dead air. But it was also to show the conversational aspect of the session. The full session itself lasted for a good 19 minutes, but we garnered, to me, not only shared a good example that iOS apps can be useful under the right conditions, but it may also be a great substitute for channeling for teams that don't have a medium handy. To set the stage, Taylor and I, we were in the coffin room on the second floor of the manor. It's a new room for all of us that begged the question, if there were changes to the room from its original format, would those changes garner a difference in response from all the other times from its original form? Taylor used earbuds that isolated him from questioning and all the questions that I was giving him, so he cannot hear what was being said. I also want to note that Taylor is a skeptic, and for him, he would not say anything from the necrophonics that did not make sense, unless it is a clear response, thus taking out the equation the pareidolia effect. It is to be an interesting session for the both of us, and in the end, it did turn out to be more than we expected. So, we at Raven Rose hope you find this as fascinating as we did. So I present to you the Coffin Room in Edinburgh Manor with myself, Taylor, and the spirit of Edinburgh for you. What's loud?
14. Wait.
Okay, I'm waiting. Oh! Did you need to do that? Now, the interesting thing about this particular situation was when the number 14 was brought up at the time, it didn't make any sense. 14, it wasn't something that was relevant during the time of the session. Now, the profound part about all of this happened during post-production. So when we were going through the evidence and I was running through this and listening for EVPs or anything like that, this situation came up from the start up until that incident where I felt the electrical jolts go through me. It actually happened at the 14th second. Now, does it mean anything? I don't know. It actually is something that made me wonder. I had to stop and I had to think about it. But when I was going through the evidence, I was using Audacity to go through the audio so that way I can clean the thing up and I can make sure that there wasn't anything that I was missing. And when that moment, when I got hit with that jolt of electricity, it was at the 14-second mark. Now, is that evidence of anything? I don't know. That's for you to decide. But for me, it was something that I found really profound. Did you need to do that? Seriously, did you need to do that? That was not necessary. Inside coffin room. Oh, Jesus. So is anybody in the room with us here? Do you mind if I sit on the rocking chair? How do you feel about having a coffin in the building?
It's okay.
Don't you think it's kind of creepy?
Never got one.
You never had a coffin? I'm sorry. Is there something going on outside? Can you make the coffin lid close? Can you make the cross fall? That's kind of sacrilegious. I wouldn't make you do something like that.
That's wrong.
Now, the thing that was really funny here was the fact that when I made the mention about knocking the cross off and then jokingly said it was sacrilegious, the spirit obviously responded, it's wrong. I think that shows that at some point that this spirit had some kind of attachment towards a particular faith, and in this case it had to be Christian because it was a cross. To do something that sacrilegious for him or her in due respect to the idea of knocking down something as a cross would go against their particular moral judgment. So I believe at this point the spirit maintained its moral understanding when it was alive.
In reference to Roland's question that he had proposed to the spirit while they were doing their session, about the spirit proving itself to be there, knock on something, close the coffin door, knock the crucifix off of the table, and the spirit responding with, that's bad. I believe that spirits are able to retain a little bit of that human nature that they had when they were alive. I do believe that spirits retain a lot of who they were before they died. I do believe that spirit was able to retain a little bit of its sense of humor and of its sarcasm. I also believe that it probably was able to retain a little bit of what it believed when it was alive. The fact that it was a person.
I have a question. It's something that I've always wanted to know. Is it okay if I ask?
Go on.
What do you see since you've passed on? Do you see everything like it is now, or do you see it as it was back then?
Both.
In my opinion, I think spirits are able to see in dual time frames. I think that spirits are able to see what they want to see the place that they're at, how they want to see it. If they remember it good in a certain time period, I think they're able to see it in that time period, if they choose to. If a spirit was in Edinburgh Manor, and they were happy there, and they were being treated well there, and they were being taken care of there, then I believe that spirit can see Edinburgh the way that it was, maybe back in the 50s or 60s, or, whenever they were there. But if it happens to be maybe the spirit that committed suicide there or something, it could be that spirit sees it as it is now, which is abandoned and getting old and in disrepair. So I think that it all depends on the situation of the spirit.
Now, with the response of both being given in regards to the question of what this particular spirit sees, whether they see what they are used to, the time frame, or the moment in which is something that's familiar with them, as opposed to seeing things as it is current. That's kind of up for debate on how that response would be. So I believe that a spirit would transcend whatever we can see as a physical boundary, because perception is reality and reality is perception, and to them, they are able to see both at the same time.
Do you see us as ghosts?
Your spirit?
Okay. So when Cindy and Kelly and Mama Pat were here, those are the three young ladies that were here, and Stephanie. Do you see their spirits?
Beacon.
You're peeking? When you're peeking, what do you see? What color? Do you see a color? Do you see a light? Do you see...
Big man voice. She said beacon.
Oh, beacon.
I believe that spirits see people in different ways. I believe that spirits see mediums, sensitives, empaths, intuitives in a different light than they do most other people that don't believe they have that ability. I believe that spirits see mediums with a brighter, more vibrant light, vibrant aura. I believe that they would see people like Roland, who is kind of in the middle, as a dimmer, but not totally nightlight dim type of aura or type of light, because he does have that ability. He just hasn't fully embraced it yet, so his light isn't quite as bright as, for example, Kelly McCarville or myself. And then Taylor, I believe, is a bit dimmer than Roland, because he tends to lean more towards the skeptic side of things. So he would be a bit dimmer in the fact that he doesn't quite embrace the spiritual side of things. He believes it, he is open-minded to it, but the full-fledged belief isn't quite there yet.
There was a mention that there was a female who responded. Now, that begs the question, was there more than two spirits that were here? We didn't know, because we didn't have the understanding that there were two spirits. But then again, she could have been there if there was a female spirit, and she could have answered, and the male spirit turned around and reminded me, no, that's not what she said. She said beacon. A full-on correction to something that I missed. Now, what do you think?
Okay. You know, thank you. That actually answers a lot of questions for me. Because I've always wanted to know. Do you see other spirits as a beacon light too?
Different.
That is interesting, different. So do they have different shades, like the nicer ones are brighter and the ones that are not nice are a little darker or something like that? Okay, I think I get it.
I think the one thing that a lot of sessions that uses ITCs or spirit boxes and things like that tend to overlook is the response of silence. Have you ever been asked a question that you obviously knew the person who was asking the question knew the answer to, and in your mind, would you bother even answering the question? I think that is an example of what happened here. I already answered my own question when I stated that, when you see other spirits, do they have particular shades of color? Obviously, good, brighter, evil, darker, however it may be. But I think in my mind, the fact that the spirit did not respond actually gave the answer. I already answered it. So sometimes in certain cases, I think that we as paranormal investigators tend to overlook obvious silence, thinking that maybe they just don't want to answer, when the truth of the matter is they are answering. But through that particular silence, it's almost a resonating, duh, you know the answer to that.
Are you able to move?
Your one's bright.
Okay. Mine's bright.
Yes.
This to me was basically one of those moments in which I think that both Cynthia and Kelly would sit there and say, "See, I told you so." When it stated that my light was bright, obviously me being what I am would sit there and was like, okay, I'm not quite sure what you're getting at, because the truth of the matter is I'm not in any level in par to people like Cynthia or Kelly. So I had that sense of skepticism, but it does make sense in the aspect that in regards to between Taylor and I, mine would obviously be brighter because I have that connection.
I believe they had more activity happen because Roland's light was the brightest one there, and so they were drawn to him. And for some odd reason, when you put Roland and Taylor together, they always seem to get stuff happen. So it kind of wasn't surprising in a way that once the rest of us went to bed, they got the good stuff.
How about Taylor's? Is Taylor's bright?
Really fast, think it said not yet. Not yet.
Yeah. I think he needs something to believe. Do you want to help him believe? Help me help him believe. Please?
Personal.
Okay. I know it is personal for him, but he has to see it. He's one of those that has to see it. You need to do something for him to see, to hear, to feel. Wouldn't you like him to understand?
The hell are you talking about?
Why?
Just doesn't make any sense, and it says he knows.
This was one of those moments in which Taylor said that he actually was blown out of the water because of the context in which it was presented. When he took off the headsets, he actually stopped, took off the headsets, and wanted to know what we were talking about, because the statement was, he knows. And the thing is that it makes me stop and wonder what inspired him to do something like that. Because the thing that is interesting is if you were to listen to, you got to understand that Taylor is listening to this with no understanding or any kind of recognition to any of the questions that's being said. And so the context to him is all gibberish. It's just a bunch of things that he's just spewing out. And then to have something come out that would draw his attention. Again, this is a skeptic. He's a very guarded skeptic. And to have him turn around and say, what the hell are you guys talking about? there had to be some inspiration to that particular statement, because the truth of the matter is, it is all unclear to him. And to have something in this statement in regards, he's probably wondering if we were talking about him. So I just found that moment interesting. I had to chuckle because, again, he didn't understand the context until we were done and we were going through the whole conversation, and he stopped and he had that mind blown moment.
Who knows? How knows? He knows. The hell?
Listen to the tape recording.
Okay.
I'll tell you in just a little bit.
So I take it then whatever this is in context.
It is very much in context.
Because it's fucking honest to me.
It is very much in context.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Alright.
Okay. Well, thank you. You definitely helped him. Is his light a little bit brighter? Okay. Is there anything you can do to prove your presence here? You know, I know you're not a trained dog, but I just want to validate that you're here. Is there a way you can prove it?
Already have.
Okay, if you're talking about the pushing down part, that one was pretty intense.
In regards to what happened to Taylor in the closet of the little girl's room, as we call it, the little girl's room. I believe it's actually a maintenance man's room, but I'm not real sure. I believe that Taylor actually got pushed down by the spirit, not as an attack, but more as a, okay, you're a skeptic? Well, look what I can do. See if this makes you believe. I think it's more the spirit was trying to show Taylor that, hey, I'm here. And there is no disbelieving that I'm not here. I'm here.
Thank you, by the way, for not hurting him.
It worked.
Yep. So I'm just happy that you didn't hurt him. Thank you. But can you do something else other than pushing people around? If you may, please.
Winning.
Did you say winning? Winning, leaning? Help me. What did you say?
Winning again.
Now, going back to what was said earlier about Beacon and being corrected, again, this is now the second time in one session in which a word wasn't heard and a correction was made. Again, this is something that I found very interesting, because even if you were to take the necrophonic spiritist, the SB7, whatever the device you use, and the skeptic turns around and goes, well, all it is just random word generators. For the odds of a correction twice on something that was not heard properly and to be repeated and corrected in some cases, like the first one, the odds of that is very slim. So you're looking at a very high percentage of something that could not happen based on something that is randomly generated, and in context a correction was made. Now, what was the purpose of the word winning? When I was speaking with Cynthia, I think it's in regards to the fact that this person, the spirit, felt it succeeded in what it needed to do to prove to Taylor that spirits do exist. Because we've got to remember, Taylor keeps a red card in his back pocket. And I think this is the one time he knew that he couldn't pull out the penalty flag on this one.
Okay, winning. Thank you. Thank you. You're definitely proving to me you're here. All I need you now to do is close that door or go and knock over the coffin or something. That would definitely be something.
Now, I want to make an observation here that some people probably would have missed. When generally people use the necrophonics or spiritists or any of those kind of devices, generally the box dictates the direction. There's been a few cases in which people would have set questions and they would get a response, but generally on the whole, most times that's ever used, the box tends to lead the direction. So, for example, you could sit there going, hello, is there any spirits here? And then the word brown would come up. And you're going, brown, what's brown? Dirt. And you're like, okay, yeah, the dirt's brown. Are you buried in the dirt, you know? And the box will lead the direction. In this case, this is the third time I changed the line of questioning. The first time was the opening, in which general questions was asked. Then we went and changed directions and talked about what the spirits saw. And we went through that period, and now I changed direction again, in which I am making reference to going down into the basement. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because, again, if you're talking about random word generators, the Obulus, the Spirit Box, SB7, the Necrophonics, etc., generally you can say pareidolia will come into play if the thing was out in the open and people could hear it. But again, Taylor has the earbuds, so therefore you can't hear the questioning. He has no idea of the direction in which the questioning is going. So I think it's interesting to note that at this point, this is the third time we changed the line of questioning, and the spirit box followed suit. It didn't lead it, I did. So, just something for you to take note of.
Is it safe for us to go down into the boiler room?
No.
Will something bad happen to us if we go down there?
Very mad.
Okay. Will you protect us if we go down there?
No.
Who's down there that's angry?
The keeper.
In regards to the spot in the session where they had the reference to the keeper, in my opinion, I believe that the reference to the keeper is actually possibly a reference to the Joker or one of the maintenance men that could be there, because the spirit that Roland and Taylor were talking to mentioned that he was just passing through. And when they asked who would hurt them if they went downstairs, or something along the lines to that effect, and they got the answer, the keeper. In my opinion, I don't think it's a separate spirit. I believe that it's either A, the Joker, or B, one of the maintenance men or caretakers there. I don't think that it's a separate negative entity at all.
Can we talk to the keeper?
Leave it.
We really want to go down there.
Pressure.
If you're going to do pressure, do it on the door or on the coffin. So you don't think it's a good idea. Can we go at least into the room with the 2 chairs? In the basement? Kitchen area? Or a cafeteria, I'm assuming that's what it is. Safe to go there? Okay. Well, we really appreciate your concern. I'll talk to Taylor and see what they say, or see what he says. Probably still go. Maybe we'll help him.
You're warned.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Are we going to get hurt?
No.
Okay. Do you think Taylor will walk out believing?
+1.
When I brought this point up with Cynthia, we had an interesting discussion about what is the definition of +1 in this regards. She made a point that maybe the +1 was a kind of period understanding for the spirit. For us, as she explained, it could be defined as, yes, you'd have an understanding and then some. I brought up the idea that what Taylor and I were thinking, we were thinking that it is in regards to the fact that he may go down there, may have an epiphany, and then there's an attachment following home. Cynthia says that could be a possibility. This is still up for debate on what the idea of the +1 is. I'm going to leave that up to you, Raven Rosers, to see what you think it is. Is it a euphemism for and then some, or is it in regards to he will be happy, he will gain an understanding, but then he will also be walking out with an attachment?
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on. That's okay with you?
I want you to pay attention to the line of response that's going to be coming up. You will hear the word breathe, then you'll hear the word miss it. The words miss it. To me at the time, it didn't make any sense. I was like, miss it? Miss what? Did you miss something? Did we miss something? When Taylor and I went back to go listen to it, it almost was a form of plea for us to understand that the spirit did pass away, and that in its passing, it misses being alive. So when I brought this up with Cynthia, Cynthia also validated that by stating that yes, that does make sense, because maybe the spirit wants to talk to people, wants to interact with people, wants to get that sensation of being alive again. And after us talking to him, this was the one message that the spirit was trying to get back to us. So, I think that if anybody who goes to go visit Edinburgh Manor, if you run into the traveler or the just passing through spirit or the transitory spirit, listen to them, because I think they have a story to tell. But I think the most important thing that they have in that story is they miss being alive. They miss people. They miss the interaction. This spirit really enjoyed conversing.
I believe that We got a better response from the spirits at that time because of the fact that we had so much psychic energy and such a bright light in one place. It's kind of like a moth to a light bulb. When you have that bright light, when you have that loving spirit, when you have that person that's there and willing and able to talk to you, you're gonna run to that. You're gonna run to that person first.
Breathe.
Breathe. As in like sad? Are you sad?
Miss it.
What did I miss? Are we done here?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this is just a very short notation. This is the 4th time I changed the direction of questioning. So again, the necrophonics didn't lead. I chose to change the direction in closing. So now, again, I brought it back to it being personal. Who is this person? Who is this? Who are we talking to? We're breaking away from the discussion about going into the boiler room. If this was a necrophonic that was based on set words, so that way you can come up with a false reading, this was a random change of direction, and it complied with it and followed through. So keep that in mind.
I want to say thank you. What's your name? So that way I can say thank you properly. Do you have a name?
What are you talking about?
What?
Just passing through.
We're good. We're done.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
EVP session end.
I believe the spirit that Roland and Taylor were talking to that referred to himself as just passing through, I believe he is more than likely a spirit that was drawn to Edinburgh because of the energy of the place, because that place is a beacon, because it has so much spiritual activity and spiritual energy to it. I believe that the person that was just passing through could have been it could have been a transitory spirit from anywhere, so I can't exactly tell you where it was from or anything. It never actually said to me where it was from because I wasn't in or a part of that conversation. But I do believe that spirits are transitory. I do believe that spirits can travel from one place to another. So it may have been a spirit that was familiar with Roland and was just passing through Edinburgh because we were there. It could have been a spirit that was just passing through, again, because of the fact that the place is a beacon and a drawing point for spirits.
Now, I hope you enjoyed the session that you got to hear. It is actually something that I find, again, very profound and very interesting. It is open up for debate, and there is enough for people to discuss some of the things that came out. To me, I think this was something that was very, as an investigator, this was something that definitely strengthened my resolve into continuing the pursuit of finding about if there's life after death. But I think it transcends something even far more than that. I think as an investigator, it also taught me that there are spirits that actually do have stories to tell, and that they do like to have a conversation, and that they do like to feel that sense of humanism in which they are interacting with a live person that isn't sitting there trying to have them answer a set of questions or to have them do dog tricks, knocking on doors and flickering on lights. That sometimes probably the best interaction with the spirit is just to interact with them. This was one of those moments. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every investigation should be treated like you're trying to buy a drink for a person. But maybe if it's not working for you and that you're not really getting anything, maybe treating them like a human being could be an approach. So that's what I took away from this. But most especially, I want to thank all of you, the Ravenettes and Rosers, who sat here and were loyal to us and have followed us and have contributed to everything that we have done. I want to say thank you. You guys have a wonderful evening. God bless. And you guys keep searching, hunting. Because if you want to know something, the story's out there. And I hope you do find it. Till next time. Have a good night.
My overall impression of the whole session that Roland and Taylor did, I believe it was a unique session in the fact that they were able to actually hold a conversation. I believe that it was a unique conversation in the fact that Roland was still able to lead the whole conversation and the ITC device followed his lead. I believe that they did come into contact with a very intelligent spirit. I believe that the spirit, more than anything, sounded pretty benign. I don't believe it was out there to harm anyone. The fact that it warned Roland and Taylor not to go to the basement, it warned Roland and Taylor not to go to the boiler room. I believe that it was actually looking out for their well-being, and it was kind of funny because listening to some parts of it, it sounded like it was a spirit that was actually kind of able to keep its sense of humor and keep remnants of what it was when it was alive.